Alright, so what we have here is the Thermo King HMI human interface machine. The way you get it to turn on is you hold this down for about 2 to 3 seconds and you should see it all light up. Once it lights up, you should see the standby. The standby, that alone will have the Thermo King unit to where it'll sense the voltage on the batteries to, once they drop below a certain voltage, the engine itself will kick on without turning on the compressor for it to cool the cab or the heater, and it will not change the climate temperature inside the cab, but it will charge the batteries. Once the batteries are charged, it will shut off on its own. That's on standby mode. On the cooling mode, you move the very left knob and you get the snowflake to start blinking, and just like you do on the front dash, you turn it all the way to the cool side and then you can just modify it. And you should, on the right knob, you should get all these LEDs to light up. The more the LEDs light up to the right, the higher the speed will be. This button here is not a button, it's actually a thermistor. It's to sense the temperature inside the cab. Do not press that, do not touch it, or don't break it. And that should be it. You wait for the alarm, it'll start beeping outside on the engine on the APU, and you wait for it to kick on. That's for cooling. Alright, so on the heater mode, you can do the same thing. You hold down the button for 2 to 3 seconds and you will see the standby mode as well. And for that, like I said on the previous video, the standby mode, it'll monitor the battery voltage alone, and just that. The battery voltage drops below a certain, I wouldn't say 11 volts or so, it'll crank the APU engine, work as a generator, and it will charge up the batteries back to the 12 volts, and it'll shut off without changing climate in the cab. For the heat mode, you'll want to turn the knob to the right. That will be the very left knob, and keep in mind that that is a separate unit. It'll be under the bunk here. You will see some smoke coming out through the bottom of the cab. And this unit here, the more max it is to the right, it'll control the fan on its own. The blower itself will not blow out more heat. There's a separate vent. And if we could look under the cab or under the bunk here, it will be this one here. This one alone will throw out the hot air. This one's just gonna be a regular blower fan blowing. If you turn the knob, the right knob, and you let it warm up, and the heat mode should begin. Here under the bunk, we have the evaporator core box. This blue filter is the filter for the evap core, keeping it from getting clogged up. We change that out in the shop every so often, or as soon as it gets clogged up or dirty. APUs, the PMs on them are done every year. That's where all the cold air runs, which they'll be short routed, or on some Volvos you'll have them routed to the sides from the factory. And then this other duct, this is the single duct, the only one for the heat mode, and that will be the only one for the heater. On most Internationals and some Volvos, you should be able to see what is the Airtronics. The Airtronics is a separate unit from the tri-pack. It is controlled through the same interface board, same controllers. Guys, keep this area clear of any obstruction from air. There is no filter to keeping it from getting clogged up, and this is the only vent it's got to pull in the cold air from the cab, and it goes over through the other side and it heats up and you get your hot air. Keep it clear, keeping it from overheating and so that the air keeps circulating around the unit. So we're out here. This is the exterior. This is a power plant, the tri-pack. Hit these two latches, get it open up. And the only basic thing that we should know on this is to at least how to check the oil level. You check the oil dipstick. You got a rag. Go ahead and clean her up. Take a second dip. And here we have a notch, which is the max fill level. These things don't take much. Even when it's way at the bottom, you're maybe only talking 1 quart, if that too. And here we have the master switch for the engine. This is the main power fuse. Keep in mind, if this is turned off, no matter how many times you request it to come on the inside, nothing's gonna turn on. If you guys are coming out of a Thermo King and it's not turning on, instead of you guys maybe waiting in line, you guys can check this to see if it's on. If it's on, it's probably a fuse. You may have to go back into the shop. But reason being is maybe the guy that was working on it, even here in the shop, they might have, or we might have left it off. Just make sure that's on. And if that's on, you should get power to the controller and get it to turn on the cooling or the heat mode. Or turn it off while it's running. You can turn it off. And if you were to decide you wanted to add oil, like I said, you are able to turn it off, add your oil, check your fluid, and just turn it back on, and that'll resume.